Yo, what is going on, everyone? My name is Nick, or the Notorious Fantasy, and in today's video, we're going to be talking about my must-draft rookies for fantasy football in 2021. Inside today's video, I'm going to be breaking down 5 rookies that I believe to be must-draft candidates based upon where they are going at their current ADP. But before we get on into the deep dive of these rookies, I would like to ask, if you are new to the YouTube channel and you do end up enjoying today's video, to please make sure that you hit that subscribe button down below. Not only is it free, me and the guys on the Awesemo Fantasy Football YouTube channel put out content every single day to help you guys win your 2021 Fantasy Football Championship. And while you're down there, whether you are new to the channel or not, please make sure you hit that like button down below to help boost this video up the algorithm so that more beautiful people like yourself can see today's video. So without further ado, let's get into it. The first must-draft rookie is running back of the Pittsburgh Steelers, former running back of the Alabama Crimson Tide, Najee Harris. Underdog ADP, running back number 12 off of the board right now. Overall pick 16.80. So he's sitting in the middle of the second round, but in some drafts, I've seen him go as high as at the end of the first round. And honestly, it's for good reasoning, because Najee Harris is in the perfect scenario to succeed. In the past, we have seen that Mike Tomlin has basically constructed a running back factory for fantasy football. When Le'Veon Bell was there, Le'Veon Bell was dominant year in and year out. When Le'Veon Bell was gone, he went jet skiing. Then James Conner stepped in and played well. Obviously, James Conner did not have the most successful season last year, which is what ultimately led to the decision of them drafting Najee Harris inside of the first round of the 2021 NFL Draft. But despite the fact that James Conner didn't succeed last year, I think a lot of the reasoning was because of the offensive line. Now, the offensive line hasn't gotten much better, but what has gotten much better is the talent at the running back position. James Conner was no Le'Veon Bell. James Conner was a serviceable running back in a great situation in Pittsburgh. When they had a great offensive line, James Conner was going to dominate. But once the offensive line dwindled down, it wasn't as good, then James Conner struggled. That's why you inject Najee Harris into this offense, a running back who, even behind a worse offensive line this season, will probably be able to easily dominate. A running back who is going to be very involved in the receiving game of the Pittsburgh Steelers, which highly ups his value in PPR and half PPR leagues. If you're looking at a season last year at Alabama, at 22 years old, he played in 13 total games. He had 251 total rushing attempts, 1,466 rushing yards. He had 43 receptions for 425 receiving yards and 30 total touchdowns on the season. In his junior year in 2019, at the ripe age of 21 years young, he had 13 games played, 209 rushing attempts, 1,224 rushing yards. He had 27 receptions and 20 total touchdowns on the season with 304 receiving yards. You can clearly see from these stats, and if you go ahead and flip on the tape, that Najee Harris is an absolute fucking monster. This guy is going to hurdle over people. He is going to potentially run people over, juke people out. This guy is the perfect running back for fantasy football because of, like I said, he's good at running the ball. He's also very, very talented in the receiving game. And while I believe the Pittsburgh Steelers are not some ultra run-heavy attack, right, they're going to have to throw the ball a decent amount. Najee Harris is going to benefit from that because Big Ben loves to dump the ball off. Even James Conner, who is nowhere near the pass-catching running back that Najee Harris was very successful in the receiving game for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And Najee Harris is a clear workhorse in Pittsburgh. There is no worry of anyone behind Najee Harris taking away any valuable touches from Najee Harris. Najee Harris wants to play football so much, he wants to win so much, that this man went to hurdle a defender in a preseason game. In a preseason game, this man went for a hurdle. Now, that is an idiotic move in reality, but it just shows you how good of a player Najee Harris is, how much this guy wants to win, even if it's just a preseason game. So I believe Najee Harris is going to be heavily utilized in the Pittsburgh Steelers offense. While I wouldn't take him inside the first round, I wouldn't be surprised if at the 11th or 12th pick, if I was to have taken him or if someone would take him, I definitely wouldn't judge you there, because I think Najee Harris has the potential to be a top 5 running back for fantasy football in 2021, and you can get him at running back number 12 off of the board right now. But before we get on into the next must-draft rookie, I would like to let you guys know that football season is right around the corner. It's about a week away at this point. It's less than a week away at this point. And Underdog is offering the biggest best ball tournament in history with a $3.5 million prize pool and over $1 million going to first place. Tune into our shows to get that up-to-date NFL news and Underdog tips straight from our fantasy football experts. Deposit now using promo code Awesemo to get a free $25. Start your football season right and start it right now with Underdog Fantasy. Back into it. The next must-draft rookie is Devonta Smith, wide receiver of the Philadelphia Eagles. Underdog ADP, wide receiver 35 off the board. Overall pick 74.10. He's going inside the 7th round right now. So two guys from the Alabama Crimson Tide going back-to-back in my must-draft rookies list. Now, Devonta Smith is not even coming off the board as the #1 rookie wide receiver at this point. Ja'Marr Chase is still doing that. Now, earlier on in the offseason, I was talking about how I thought that Devonta Smith could easily outscore Ja'Marr Chase in fantasy football. While I like the offense in Cincinnati, Ja'Marr Chase is on a crowded team. Boyd is there. Higgins is there. He's there as well. They're all going to be getting a decent amount of targets. Devonta Smith is the clear alpha dog, the clear #1 target in Pittsburgh. That should be relatively evident by the talent around him. Now, Jalen Reagor may not be as much of a garbage can as people thought he would be, but there's not too much outside of him and Reagor. So I believe that Devonta Smith will be seeing a lot of targets in this Philadelphia Eagles offense, which could lead to him being the best rookie wide receiver in fantasy football. Now, Ja'Marr Chase is not included in this video because I am very worried about the issues in training camp that he can't get separation from a Cincinnati Bengals defensive back. I'm also worried about how in preseason he was barely used. He wasn't looking good in preseason, so I'm a bit worried. So I think Devonta Smith is in a potential role to be the best rookie wide receiver in fantasy football, and he is going at wide receiver number 35, and in my opinion, he could easily be a top 24 wide receiver this year. Looking back at his 2020 campaign at Alabama, in which he won the Heisman Trophy, he was at the age of 22. He played in 12 games, having 117 receptions on 147 targets for 1,856 receiving yards, 15.9 yards per reception, with 23 receiving touchdowns on the season, a 79.6% catch rate with a 34.6% target share in Alabama's offense. Alabama is one of the best schools in the country at football. They were the best last year. They have all of these elite wide receivers. And Devonta Smith, despite having all these great wide receivers around him, had 34.6% of the target share in that offense. That should tell you a lot. More than 1/3 of the time, Mr. Mac Jones threw the fucking football last year, it was going to Devonta Smith. Now, a lot of people will point to Devonta Smith and say, hey, this dude basically is built like a fucking skeleton. He's so skinny. They call him the Slim Reaper, all that. It is what it is. Because there are no signs, based upon everything I've read from doctors, that any type of his build is going to lead to future injuries. He got hurt in the offseason. People are pointing to, hey, that's why he got hurt. I was listening to doctors talk about it. That's not why he got hurt. And he's perfectly healthy right now. Now, it might be a slow start for Devonta Smith. It might take him a couple of weeks to get acclimated to this offense as he missed so much time of the offseason with injuries. But that's okay, because he's not a guy that you're throwing into your lineup week 1. Najee Harris is your #1 running back in most scenarios. Maybe your running back too. So you're playing him every single week starting week 1. But with Devonta Smith, you can let him chill on your bench for a couple of weeks, let him get warmed up, and then once he catches fire in Philadelphia, I really do believe he has top 24 potential at the wide receiver position. Again, getting drafted outside of the top 32 wide receivers. We are back into the running back boat with running back of the San Francisco 49ers, Trey Sermon, underdog ADP, running back number 27, overall pick 69.70, making him one of the final picks inside of the 6th round. Now, Trey Sermon didn't have some type of huge hype train that followed him, like with Najee Harris. There isn't a whole lot of hype about Trey Sermon. Trey Sermon is in a situation where, at least to me, he's the clear #2 running back in San Francisco. But the way the 49ers run their offense is probably the best case scenario for a running back. Now, obviously, Najee Harris slots in as the clear #1 running back there in Pittsburgh. So I guess if Sermon was in Pittsburgh, Najee Harris wasn't there, that would be the best situation. But as the backup, this is an excellent scenario for Trey Sermon to eat. The 49ers are a team that likes to run the rock. And they also like to utilize the hot hand approach. So at the beginning of the season, Raheem Mostert will get the first licks, right? He'll get the beginning of the season. The first week, he's going to get the first touches. And if he's hot, then he'll stay hot, right? But if he starts struggling, then Shanahan's going to cut the cord, take him out, and then guess who's coming in the game? Trey Sermon. And if Trey Sermon's able to succeed, then he's the number one running back on the team in that game. He's the hot hand. And then going into the next game, they say, hey, you know what? Trey Sermon was hot last game. Let's roll with them again. And if Sermon's able to put up multiple games where this man is the hot running back in this backfield, where he's the one getting a majority of the touches, then this guy, in those weeks, will be a top 12 running back. If Raheem Mostert ends up getting hurt, I do not root for injuries, knock on wood. I am hoping that Raheem Mostert stays healthy. But with his injury history, there is a chance that Raheem Mostert gets hurt and Trey Sermon goes from being drafted as running back number 27 to a top 12 running back week in and week out. And now think about what could happen when they switch from Jimmy Garoppolo to Trey Lance. Now, again, I'm not some type of a wizard here. I'm not going to be able to tell you exactly when Justin Fields is going to be the starting quarterback, we're going to talk about in a couple of minutes. And I'm not going to be able to tell you when Trey Lance is going to be the starting quarterback of the San Francisco 49ers. But to me, it is inevitable that eventually, at a point in this season, Jimmy Garoppolo will get taken out. And it's going to be Trey Lance time. And when that happens, when Trey Lance is the guy, this team is going to change how they play. You want to know why? Because Trey Lance is good at running the ball. They're going to make the offense centered around his strengths. So they're going to try to run the ball more. And that's going to even further help out Trey Sermon. Now, there's also a possibility that Raheem Mostert just dominates, right? 17 games now of just pure domination. He's the clear running back one. He is just destroying these defenses. The 49ers love him. He's playing great because Raheem Mostert's a solid running back. But, what are the odds that that happens? What are the odds that Raheem Mostert really is able to hold a stranglehold over the job the whole season? I wouldn't say very high. So I think Trey Sermon is technically in the perfect situation to succeed as a backup running back. His stats, though, aren't amazing. If you look at his stats at The Ohio State University, 22 years old in his senior year, 8 games, 116 rushes, 870 rushing yards, he had 12 receptions, and 4 total touchdowns on the season, 95 receiving yards. So that's nothing special. But when you flip the tape on, you look at Trey Sermon, and you can see that, oh, that's why the 49ers drafted him, because he's pretty good. And the 49ers can make any running back look good. Raheem Mostert is not that good. He's not that good. But he will be the lead back. But eventually, I believe Trey Sermon will become the guy in this backfield. Next up, we got a quarterback that I just talked about for a couple of seconds. Quarterback of the Chicago Bears, Justin Fields. Underdog ADP, quarterback 14 off the board. Overall pick 122.70 going in the 11th round. In most drafts, he will not be coming off the board as quarterback 14 in your redraft leagues because there's a lot of risk in having Justin Fields as a potential starting quarterback in situations because in normal leagues, your leagues with your friends, your league with people from your office, league with your family, people are going to take 2 quarterbacks before you even take 1. So typically, Justin Fields falls a bit further in those leagues. But with that said, Justin Fields is in a situation to succeed. But the question is, how long is it going to take? Now, I believe that both Trey Lance as well as Justin Fields will be the starting quarterback of their respective teams at a point in the season. I do believe the reason why Trey Lance isn't on here is because I think Justin Fields is going to be able to do it much easier. I think Jimmy Garoppolo is a good enough quarterback to keep this team just floating above water. Not even floating above water, just dominating in these games because they have such a good defense, they have such a good offense, they have such a good running attack, they have these great wide receivers around them, they have George Kittle, so there's a good chance that he is able to succeed. And they don't have to pull the plug instantly. But Andy Dalton isn't bad. But he's not Justin Fields. Justin Fields clearly outperformed, I should say, Andy Dalton in the preseason. So I think Justin Fields, it may only be 2, 3, 4 games until we see Justin Fields be the starting quarterback. Now, there's always a chance that since Matt Nagy is such an idiot, that Justin Fields doesn't play at all in the season. It's a Patrick Mahomes situation with Alex Smith. Now, the odds of that happening is very low in my opinion, but there's always a chance something like that happens. So Justin Fields, if you take him, he needs to be your quarterback too, because there is no way he's the starting quarterback in week 1. But do we hear that Justin Fields music? early on, maybe even in week 1. Andy Dalton starts, he looks like shit against the Rams, and then they say, you know what? Justin Fields time, they pull the plug, they throw him in week 1. That wouldn't surprise me either. So I am very much a believer of Justin Fields being the starting quarterback relatively early on in the season for the Chicago Bears. Looking at his stats at the Ohio State University, notice how our first 2 players from Alabama, the second 2 players are from Ohio State. In 8 games at 22 years old in 2020, he had 225 passing attempts for 2,100 passing yards. He also had 22 passing touchdowns and 6 INTs with 383 rushing yards. Now, Justin Fields isn't going to go out there like Kyler Murray and put some motherfucker in the spin cycle rushing the ball, or he's not going to be like Lamar Jackson and juke someone's shoes off their feet, right? That's not going to happen, but he will be able to use his legs, which is going to elevate him in fantasy football. Again, the biggest issue here with Justin Fields is nothing to do with Justin Fields. It's just what's going to happen and how long it's going to take for them to inject him into this offense to be the starting quarterback. But before we can get into my final must-draft rookie, I would like to let you guys know that college football has just kicked off, and we have launched our inaugural college football DFS package. Use promo code TAILGATE. Promo code TAILGATE to get $10 off your first week of Awesemo Plus college football projections, which includes our player projections, ownership projections, matchup data, and much, much more. You can activate this promo code by clicking the link down below in the description of this video. This offer is good through Saturday, September 4th. Again, promo code TAILGATE, or you can just go ahead and click the link in the description. Final must-draft rookie of this video is wide receiver of the Alabama Crimson Tide, now of my Miami Dolphins, underdog ADP, wide receiver number 45, overall pick 91.80, Jalen, and he waddled away, waddle, till the very next day. Jalen Waddle has been put in a pretty solid situation in Miami. Now, a lot of people like to make fun of Tua Tagovailoa. They start calling him Tua turn of the ball over. So fucking funny, right? Not funny at all, in my opinion. Tua looked all right last year. I understand Tua didn't look like what he looked like at Alabama, but he looked all right. There was, in my opinion, no reason to go out and say Tua's a bust after 1 year, right? Tua is now the clear starting quarterback. There is no Ryan Fitzmagic sniffing up his ass to become the starting quarterback. None of that is going to happen this year. They removed Chan Gailey. They bring in a dual-headed offensive coordinator move, which to me is a little bit weird. As a Dolphins fan, I think it's kind of weird that we have 2 offensive coordinators, but it seems like it was working out pretty well in preseason, so you know what? I'm not going to complain. I think it's a fine decision. And I think that there's a good chance that this team is much more aggressive with throwing the ball. Last year, Tua was playing scared. If I'm being real with you, he was. In some of those games, like up against the Cardinals, up against the Chiefs, this dude looked like Tua at Alabama. He was slinging the ball. He had no concerns with trying to throw, like, he was not scared to throw the ball. But then there's these other games where he's just looking out there. It's like a deer in the fucking headlights. He has no idea what to do. He doesn't want to throw a pick, so he just makes all these bad decisions. Now, he's looking to be more aggressive. They bring in Will Fuller. They bring in Jalen Waddle. Will Fuller suspended for week 1. I like Will Fuller a lot this season. But I think there's a good shot that Waddle or Fuller are the number 1 wide receivers in targets on the Miami Dolphins this year. So I'll take this shot on Waddle later on in the draft to become the guy. Devonta Parker will never be that guy. He was with Ryan Fitzpatrick a couple years ago because Ryan Fitzpatrick likes to lock onto one wide receiver, and he picked Devonta Parker. And it made sense because Devonta Parker was the clear best wide receiver on the team at that point. But now, with Fuller, Waddle, and Parker, Parker's not going to be as involved. Waddle or Will Fuller will be the guy here in this offense, and I have a lot of confidence that if Tua's slinging the rock as effectively as I believe he can, that Jalen Waddle is certainly worthy of that late-round dart throw. Last year in 2020, Jalen Waddle was dealing with injuries. He played in 6 games, 28 receptions on the season on 32 targets, 591 receiving yards, 21.1 yards per reception. That's pretty good. He had 4 total touchdowns on the season and an 87.5% catch rate and the Alabama offense. The stats aren't even that great in 2019. 13 games, 33 receptions, 38 targets, 560 receiving yards, 17.0 yards per reception, 86.6% or 86.8% catch rate, and 6 receiving touchdowns. Nothing super special, but you turn on the tape and it tells you a different story. It's just like with Trey Sermon. The tape shows you that Jalen Waddle is really fast. He's really good, and he's typically always open. And that is very, very good for a wide receiver. And I believe Jalen Waddle will be able to make the next step into the next level in Miami and be dominant. He ran a 4.32 40-yard dash at his pro day, which is adjusted to a 4.37, 96th percentile. The reason why Player Profiler adjusts it is because they figure that, oh, maybe at the pro day, they're not doing the watch correctly. They're giving them extra time, whatever, right? It is what it is. I think that Jalen Waddle is going to be very effective this season for the Miami Dolphins. Now, there's two other players I'm going to touch on, not go super in-depth in, but you might be thinking, Nick, why are these guys not in the video? So, Kyle Pitts here, tight end of the Atlanta Falcons. I like Pitts. I think he's going to have a great year. I think a lot of people are drafting him too high as a potential, thinking he's going to be a top 3 tight end, thinking he's going to finish as the number 4 overall tight end. I'm going to tell you to pump the brakes a little bit on Kyle Pitts. Not because I believe that Pitts is a bad player, but because I believe in the stats. Rookie tight ends in the last decade, only one has finished inside the top 5, and that is Evan Ingram. Take it as you will. Kyle Pitts is Calvin Johnson. Kyle Pitts is this, he's that, he's a freak, blah, blah, blah. He's a unicorn. Unicorns don't exist. Okay? I think Kyle Pitts is going to be good, though. But just temper your expectations a little bit. Final pick of this, final must-draft rookie, that's not a real must-draft rookie that I wanted to talk about, Javonte Williams, running back of the Denver Broncos. I like Javonte Williams. I don't like the situation. I believe Melvin Gordon's going to be seeing a lot of touches in this offense. It is Melvin Gordon's final year as a Bronco, final year of the contract. I think they run him into the dirt. I think Javonte Williams and him are in a guaranteed split share. If Gordon was to get hurt, Williams will overwhelmingly destroy his ADP. He will be way more worth it than where you got him at. But if Melvin Gordon doesn't get hurt, it's a 50-50 split share. They feed Gordon into the ground. Then Javonte Williams will be a huge swing and a miss. So thank you guys all so much for watching. Let me know what you thought about my must-draft rookies, as well as Kyle Pitts and Javonte Williams. I love you guys so much. I hope you did end up enjoying this video. Again, make sure you check out all the links in the description and follow me on Twitter at NotoriousFNTSY. I love you guys. Make sure you stay safe as always. Goodbye.